Jungkook would rather be happy than get caught up in the problems that always bother him. No one ever really knew how much of a burden Jungkook was carrying during the journey of his life as one of the biggest stars in the world. Every smile he puts on in front of the camera, every energetic gesture on stage, and every little laugh he throws at the fans often hides a swirling storm within him. But lately, something has changed. There is a slow but very meaningful decision that he takes. Jungkook prefers to make himself happy, instead of continuing to think about the problems that have gripped his life. When the world thinks a superstar like Jungkook is living in perfection, the reality is never that simple. Pressure from expectations, relentless criticism coming from unexpected directions, to a sense of emotional exhaustion rarely seen by the public, have been part of Jungkook's journey from a very young age. But now, the choice he made shows that he has reached a new point of maturity, the point where he decided to put his happiness in the first place in his life. In several interviews and small interactions with fans, Jungkook began to show subtle signals about how he wanted to live life. He no longer wants to be someone who always tries to satisfy everyone at the expense of himself. He began to learn that a human being, even a global idol, still has the right to choose his own path. In every little gesture, whether it's when she sings in a live stream laughing to herself, or when she talks about her humble hobbies, there's a message that feels powerful. She wants to take care of herself, not just her looks. The habit of thinking about problems constantly that has been attached to it does not arise without reason. Jungkook grew up as a perfectionist who always wanted to do everything right, impeccably, and without wanting to give the slightest chance for mistakes. But that constant pressure ended up forming a huge wall in his mind. He once admitted that he often felt worried, felt less, or even felt guilty for no apparent reason. Those were the times when he was trapped in a labyrinth of thoughts that made it difficult for him to breathe. But slowly, Jungkook began to change the way he looked at life. He realizes that while problems will always exist, he doesn't have to let them rule his life. You don't have to force yourself to look strong all the time. There are times when small joys like enjoying a hot cup of coffee, listening to music alone, dancing in your room, or simply walking around aimlessly mean more than constantly repeating the same problem in your head. This change in choice is evident in the way Jungkook lives his activities. When he said that he wanted to happy in the simplest possible way, the fans knew that the remark was not just a joke. It's a form of honesty, a recognition that he is a human being who learns to accept himself. He no longer wants to feel guilty just for trying to be happy. He no longer wants to strive to be perfect for everyone, but simply to be himself as he is, with all his shortcomings and advantages. Many soldiers felt that Jungkook's current version was more relaxed, more honest, and more free. There is a new energy in him, an energy that is no longer as heavy as it used to be. He looks like someone who has finally found room to breathe. Even in his career choices, he seemed to follow his inner voice more than the demands of the industry. He explores music in a more personal way, chooses a quieter lifestyle, and talks about the boundaries he needs to maintain for his mental health. Jungkook's decision to prioritize his happiness is also a subtle form of resistance to the stigma that has always been attached to artists. That they must always be strong, always smile, and always accept all the pressure without ever faltering. Jungkook's choice sends an important message to millions of people who have also been stuck in the same mindset, that it's okay to choose yourself. It's okay to pause and listen to what you really need. It's okay to say, I want to be happy first today. In his long journey with BTS, Jungkook has gone through more stress than ordinary people can imagine. He has to grow up in public, live his teenage years in the spotlight of millions of eyes, learn to be an adult while carrying the burden of a big name. But it is precisely behind all that he finds a valuable lesson, that life does not have to always be about achievement, it does not have to always be about perfection, and it does not have to always be about satisfying the world. Now, when he chooses to be happy, that decision is not a form of escape. It's the bravest way to survive. He chose to protect himself. He chose to embrace every little moment that made his life feel light. He chose to no longer let his happiness fall into the hands of endless problems. Jungkook's decision feels like a new chapter in his life story. One that's more honest, more human, and warmer. And the fans know that Jungkook's happiness is something worth fighting for. Because of all the achievements he has ever achieved, of all the awards he has ever received, his own happiness is the most valuable thing. A happy Jungkook is not only a blessing to himself, but also to the people who love him. Perhaps this is the real journey. Not about being the best in the world, but about learning to love yourself even though the world continues to pull in all directions. Jungkook has chosen his path. He chose to happy, and it was the most humane decision he could take. And the world, now, can only support him from a distance while wishing him one thing: that his happiness lasts a long time, longer than all the troubles that once haunted him. Because a Jungkook who chooses to be happy is a truly free Jungkook. But the journey of maintaining happiness is not an easy one for Jungkook, especially when his every step is always under a spotlight that never goes out. He may smile, but the world can still see the little mistakes he may have missed. That's the biggest challenge of being who he seems to be. Whatever he does, there are always comments that follow. There are always sharp voices that try to penetrate his fortress of calm. But now, in the midst of all that rumbling, he chose to close the doors that no longer needed to be opened, choosing not to allow dark thoughts to enter him. There was a time when Jungkook felt overwhelmed by the endless demands of the public. There are long nights where he feels that he must always move, must always work hard, must always look perfect. But the more he grows, the more he understands that man was not created to please everyone. There are boundaries to be recognized. There is personal space to be guarded. And in the end, he realized that taking care of yourself is much more important than chasing validation from an insatiable world. The choice to focus more on happiness doesn't mean Jungkook is avoiding reality. It does not close its eyes to the approaching problems. He knows that his life is not without challenges. But the difference now lies in how he responds. Instead of letting the problem eat away at his day, he chose to treat the problem as part of life, not as the center of life. He begins to realize that happiness does not come when all problems disappear, but when a person is able to come to terms with an imperfect life. In moments of silence behind the scenes, when the stage lights go out and there is only himself,